Welcome back! I'm Brittany from Hawaii Wedding Studio. Today, we're diving into the fascinating approach of Anna Morales, a talented photographer who blends visual anthropology with wedding photography to capture what she calls love with a capital L. Anna used to shoot intimate elopements right here on Oahu before moving to the East Coast. We'll be talking about how she turns your wedding photos into lasting emotional artifacts, and how she uses her yoga and mindfulness background to help couples find stillness, laughter, and authenticity in front of the camera on their big day. All right, let's get engaged.
Welcome back to the Hawaii Wedding Studio podcast. I am Sam.
And I am Riley.
And today we are just hanging out, cracking a few jokes, and doing what we do best.
Which is doing a massive deep dive into a really fascinating topic.
Exactly, a real deep dive. I actually brought my scuba gear today, so...
Okay, you don't need the fins for an intellectual deep dive, Sam. Put those away.
Right. Good point. So today we are looking at a stack of sources that, I gotta be honest, made me look at my own camera roll entirely differently this morning.
Oh, it is a heavy stack today. We are covering everything from the extinction of the northern white rhino to the highly specific way you should breathe during a yoga session.
Which sounds completely unrelated.
It sounds like a disjointed mess when you just list it out like that. But somehow all of this eventually leads back to weddings.
And the thread connecting it all is actually incredible. We are diving into the world of Anna Morales. Now, if you follow the wedding scene out here in Hawaii, specifically on Oahu, you probably know her.
Yeah, she spent years shooting elopements with the legendary Reverend James Chun.
Right. But if you look at the research we have today, calling her a photographer is, well, it's technically true, but it misses the whole intent of what she does.
It's sort of like calling a brilliant novelist a typist.
Exactly. She calls herself a visual anthropologist.
Which, first of all, sounds incredibly cool.
It really does. It sounds like something you'd put on a heavy cardstock business card if you wanted to get into a secret society or something.
It has a lot of gravity to it. But what is so interesting to me is that this is not just marketing fluff. It is an actual rigorous academic discipline.
One that she essentially had to fight tooth and nail to even study.
Right. And that is really our mission for this deep dive today. We want to unpack how someone goes from, eating a bagel in a college dorm room to creating their very own academic degree.
And then packing up, moving out to Hawaii to shoot weddings, and completely redefining photography along the way.
Not just taking pictures, but creating historical artifacts.
I love an origin story that involves carbohydrates.
Oh.
So let's start right there. Take us back to the University of South Carolina.
So, picture the scene. Anna is a student at UOFSC. She's in the VisCom program.
Visual communications.
Right. This is the traditional track you take if you want to be a photojournalist for a newspaper or a magazine.
Which seems like a totally logical place for a photographer to be.
It is, on paper anyway.
Yeah.
But she hit this massive wall. The sources describe a really deep disconnect that she felt with the standard curriculum.
Because traditional photojournalism, especially in a fast-paced news context, is heavily focused on speed.
It is all about speed. It is get the shot, file the story, move on to the next thing.
The relentless 24-hour news cycle. You just have to feed the beast.
Exactly. And philosophically, that field prioritizes being this unbiased observer. You are supposed to be the fly on the wall.
Right. You don't interact.
You don't intervene at all. You just document what happens in front of you. But Anna found that she didn't want to be detached from her subjects.
She wanted to be connected.
Yeah, she didn't want the speed. She wanted depth. She wanted slow photography.
So she is having this major crisis of faith in her chosen major. And then comes the epiphany.
The bagel moment.
The bagel moment.
Yeah.
I love so much that this specific detail made it into our research notes.
It is the best detail. So she is sitting there eating an Einstein Bros bagel.
Specifically Einstein Bros. Very important for the texture of the memory.
Crucial detail. And she is reading a textbook for this anthropology elective she was taking on the side.
Probably just trying to knock out a gen ed requirement like the rest of us did.
Probably. But she turns the page, and there it is in bold text. visual anthropology.
Ooh.
The textbook defined it as the study of humanity through visual means, using ethnographic photography and film to study historical society.
And the light bulb just completely goes off for her.
It wasn't just a light bulb, it was this massive realization that there was actually a name for the exact thing she wanted to do.
She didn't want to just capture a fleeting moment. She wanted to study the humans inside that moment.
So she marches down to the administration and basically says, I want to major in this.
Let me guess. The administration looked at her and said, yeah, we don't have that here.
They absolutely did not have that major.
This is the part of the story where most normal people would just sigh, change their major to something easy, and go to a frat party.
Right, but this gives you so much insight into her character. She did not settle. She dug in and found the Honors College Bar SC program.
Which is?
It's a program that allows highly motivated students to craft their own multidisciplinary degree from scratch.
But it is not a walk in the park.
Not at all. You have to write a massive statement of purpose, you have to form a faculty committee, and you essentially have to defend why this major deserves to exist at the university.
That sounds like a complete nightmare. I would have just majored in general studies and called it a day.
It took her 2 full years, 2 years of navigating university bureaucracy. But she actually pulled it off.
She graduated with a custom degree in religious studies through photovisual anthropology.
That is quite the mouthful.
It is a mouthful, but it perfectly sets up the entire philosophy that guides her career. This whole idea of slow photography.
Exactly. If journalism is about speed, visual anthropology is about the artifact.
Okay, let's unpack that word, artifact. Because when I hear artifact, I am instantly thinking of Indiana Jones.
Right. Dusty museums.
Dusty pottery shards, maybe some arrowheads, a golden idol if we are getting lucky, things you physically dig out of the dirt.
And honestly, that is the literal Cambridge Dictionary definition, an object made by a human being, typically of cultural or historical interest.
But Anna challenges that definition entirely.
She does. She wrote this really compelling piece where she argues that photographs are actually the most resourceful artifacts we possess as a species.
She calls them drawings of light.
Drawings of light that capture a finite existence.
Which is incredibly poetic, but is it accurate? I mean, you and I probably take a dozen photos a day on our phones. Are my blurry pictures of my morning coffee considered artifacts?
In a way, yes. But she distinguishes between a quick snapshot and a true artifact through the concept of intention.
Intention is key.
It is. And she uses some incredibly heavy case studies to prove her point. These are the real nuggets from our research that show how a photo functions as vital historical evidence.
And the first case study she discusses is just... it is really heartbreaking.
It is. It's the story of Sudan. He was the very last male northern white rhino on the entire planet.
Just pause on that for a second. Let that sink in for everyone listening. The very last male of an entire species. That is such a heavy concept to wrap your head around.
It really is. And Anna analyzes the work of the photographer Emi Vitali, who was there documenting Sudan's final days on Earth.
There are 2 specific photos from that series that Anna points to, right?
Yes. The first one shows a caretaker who is just gently rubbing Sudan's ear.
Just a little scratch behind the ear, like you do for a golden retriever.
Exactly. It is so deeply intimate. Anna argues that the visual of Sudan's tired, wrinkly eye, combined with the caretaker's hands, reveals this loving energy and a true cross-species friendship.
So it's not just a sterile picture of an endangered animal. It is a picture of a relationship.
Precisely. And the second photo is the actual moment of death.
Wow.
It shows the caretaker, Joseph Wachira, and Sudan leaning their heads against each other just moments before the rhino passed away.
And Anna's core argument here is that without that specific photograph, that exact moment, the pure tenderness of it is just gone forever into the ether.
Right. The photo documents what is actively vanishing from our Earth. It physically stops us from normalizing the extinction.
It forces you to witness it.
It does. But that photo is an artifact of environmental degradation, sure. But it's equally an artifact of profound human compassion.
And from there, she pivots from the extinction of a species to the preservation of a culture, the Native American photos.
Edward S. Curtis. Now, Curtis is definitely a complex figure in the anthropology world. There is a lot of ongoing debate about how he staged certain elements of his photos.
Sure. But Anna focuses on the overarching value of the record he managed to create.
Exactly. He spent 30 years in the late 19th and early 20th centuries painstakingly documenting North American Indians.
And there's one specific image she highlights to make her point.
It's called Placating the Spirit of a Slain Eagle, taken in 1926.
What exactly is happening in that shot?
It shows a man performing a very specific ritual to honor an eagle right after killing it to harvest its feathers.
So again, it's not just a static portrait of a person. It is capturing an action, a sacred ritual.
Anna argues that it is capturing an entire value system. The photograph teaches us about that culture's deep devotion to nature.
The idea that if you take a life from the earth, you are obligated to honor the spirit of that life.
That is pure data. It is crucial historical data encoded in light.
I really see the pattern she's weaving here. Whether it's the last rhino or a sacred ritual, the photograph is preserving something that is at immediate risk of being lost forever.
Precisely. And she even applies this same framework to the physical land itself. She discusses the work of Jamie Colker on Pacoy Island in South Carolina.
I have actually heard of this place. The island is actively sinking, isn't it?
It is classified as a heritage at-risk site because of rapidly rising sea levels.
So what does the photographer do?
Colker uses aerial imaging, so flying drones, to get this sweeping bird's-eye perspective of the island.
Anna calls this an otherworldly perspective.
Because it reveals these intricate erosion patterns that the human eye literally cannot perceive when you're just standing on the ground.
So in this specific case, the artifact is a geological survey. It is preserving the exact shape of the land before the ocean just washes it away completely.
And finally, she brings this entire philosophy right up to the modern day, specifically the year 2020 during the Black Lives Matter movement.
She looks at the work of Daniel Hare in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes. These stark, powerful black and white portraits.
And what does she pull from those?
Anna points out one specific image that shows a literal physical barrier separating different identities. And she analytically compares these 2020 photos to archival photos from the 1960s civil rights movement.
Just to show the rhyme of history, how these visual patterns repeat themselves.
Exactly. It becomes an artifact of the human struggle. So when you put all of these vastly different examples together, the rhino, the eagle ritual, the eroding island, the protests, you really see her ultimate thesis.
A photograph isn't just a fun memory trigger for your scrapbook.
It is hard evidence that this moment, this feeling, this reality actually existed.
Okay, so this is an incredibly heavy, highly academic philosophy. How in the world does this translate to shooting a wedding?
That is the big question.
Because if I am a bride or a groom, I don't necessarily want my photographer actively thinking about the extinction of the rhino while I am trying to cut my wedding cake.
Fair point. Well, this is where the participant-observer part of anthropology really comes into play.
Meaning what, exactly?
To capture those real, raw moments, the true artifacts of a couple's relationship, you cannot be a stressed-out, frantic vendor just pointing a camera.
You have to be totally grounded.
You have to be present. And this leads us to what is arguably the most unexpected part of her entire resume.
The yoga?
The yoga. But also, before we get to that, the Sufism.
Okay, let's start with the Sufism, because that seems like a pretty massive detour from wedding photography in Hawaii.
It seems like it, but it is all deeply connected. After her university studies, Anna actually traveled to Morocco for 3 months, specifically to study Sufism, which is the mystic branch of Islam.
And what was the core takeaway from that experience?
She learned this concept of love with a capital L.
Love with a capital L.
Yeah. It is not just talking about romantic love between two people. It is a universal source energy, a foundational love that connects all living things.
She actually created a whole branch of her business named after this, didn't she? A visual anthropologist in love.
She did. It is a beautiful way to frame it. But she takes this high-level esoteric mysticism and she combines it with something incredibly physical.
The yoga training. She is a certified instructor, right?
Yes. She teaches slow flow into yin yoga.
I honestly love the idea of a wedding photographer who can also fix my terrible posture. But does she actively use this while she is on a shoot?
She does?
She out there doing a downward dog while holding a massive camera lens?
Well, she does admit to getting into some highly unconventional yoga-inspired shapes, just to get the absolute perfect angle for a shot.
I can picture that.
But the real application of the yoga is entirely internal. She talks a lot about acting as a mirror for her client.
A mirror? How does that work in the context of a stressful wedding day?
Think about the vibe of a typical wedding. It is chaotic.
It's super high stakes.
Family drama everywhere. If the photographer shows up frantic, constantly checking their watch, stressing out loud about the lighting fading, the couple immediately feels that nervous energy.
Energy is highly contagious. They tense right up.
Exactly. So Anna uses her deep yoga training to regulate her own nervous system. If she is calm, if she is steady, if she is taking deep, intentional breaths, the couple subconsciously mirrors that exact state.
She creates this safe, energetic space for them to just drop their shoulders and be themselves.
And she actually has a very specific, practical technique she uses for this, doesn't she?
Oh, yes. The horse breath.
The horse breath. I really have to ask you to explain this one. What on earth is horse breath?
It is exactly what it sounds like. You take a massive deep breath in through your nose, and then you forcefully exhale through really loose lips, making them flutter together.
Like a horse sputtering.
Exactly like a horse.
And she seriously makes her paying wedding clients do this in their expensive clothes.
She does. And she swears it works brilliantly for two distinct reasons. First, physiologically, it completely relaxes the jaw muscles and stimulates the vagus nerve.
So it physically forces your body to release built-up tension.
Right. But psychologically,
Yeah.
it is just ridiculous. It makes people burst out laughing.
Kim completely breaks the ice.
It shatters the ice. You simply cannot take yourself too seriously or hold on to your wedding anxiety when you and your partner are standing in a field sputtering like farm animals.
It instantly breaks down that stiff barrier between the professional photographer and the subject.
And suddenly, right after they do it, you get a genuine relaxed smile. A real laugh.
You get a real artifact.
Exactly. Absolutely love that. It is literally using human physiology to hack the photo session.
It is brilliant. And this totally unique blend of skills, the anthropologist's sharp eye for detail combined with the yogi's calm presence, is exactly what she brought with her to Hawaii.
Which brings us to her time with Reverend James Chen.
The absolute legend in the Oahu wedding scene. They worked together out there for 3 years, primarily focusing on elopements.
They did.
Yeah.
And there was this one fantastic story from an interview Anna did with James that perfectly captures her visual anthropologist approach out in the wild.
It was during a ceremony out in Waimanalo.
Now, Waimanalo is stunning. Gorgeous beaches. But the weather out there, it truly has a mind of its own. It turns on a dime.
It sure does. So they were right in the middle of a beautiful ceremony, and this completely unexpected storm just rolls in and hits them.
We're talking sideways wind, heavy rain, the whole 9 yards.
And they only had one single umbrella between all of them.
See, that right there is the ultimate panic moment for 99% of couples.
Total meltdown territory. But because Anna and James operate with this shared mindset of embracing the reality of the moment, they didn't panic at all.
They just shifted gears.
They shifted into problem-solving mode, but they intentionally kept the energy super light and fun. They didn't try to fight the storm or pretend it wasn't happening.
They surfed it.
Metaphorically, yes, they surfed the storm. Anna said they just fully embraced the chaos of the situation.
And the photos that came out of that session.
She says they are some of her absolute favorites of her entire career. Wet, windswept, completely raw.
Because they were true. They were an honest artifact of what actually happened that day, rather than some stiff, staged version of what they originally wanted to happen.
Exactly. The profound lesson she took away from that Waimanalo storm is that chemistry between a couple and a photographer isn't about achieving perfection.
It is about shared intuition.
It is about everyone involved just collectively agreeing to ride the wave together, whatever the weather does.
Now, for anyone listening who wants to book her in Hawaii, we should mention that Anna has since relocated back to the East Coast.
Yes, she is based in North Carolina now.
And she had this really fascinating observation about the stark difference in shooting styles between the Hawaiian Islands and the East Coast.
It is a total study in contrast. She described shooting on Oahu as dealing with dramatic beauty.
Oh, for sure. You have the towering Kūlau Mountains, these massive waterfalls, the wildly shifting microclimates.
The landscape there essentially screams at you. It is undeniably gorgeous.
It does a lot of the heavy lifting for a photographer.
But the East Coast, she says it has a much softer light and far more subtle textures.
She called it beauty and restraint.
Beauty and restraint. That is such a lovely, poetic way to put it.
It requires a completely different kind of visual attention. You really have to slow down and look a little harder to find the magic in a flatter landscape.
But she is taking that exact same slow photography mindset she honed in Hawaii and applying it to the quiet coastlines of Carolina.
And she is definitely not stopping at just shooting weddings either. What is the next frontier for the visual anthropologist?
Oh, she has some really big dreams. She wants to eventually document a surf and yoga retreat center.
Which tracks perfectly with her skill set.
It does. But her ultimate dream project, the one that really stood out to me, is shooting a global Ayurvedic cookbook.
A cookbook. That is a pivot.
It sounds like it, but think about it deeply. It is blending culture, physical nourishment, and visual storytelling all into one medium.
She wants to travel the world, photographing the local food and the ancient healing traditions behind it.
It is just another beautiful form of ethnography. Food is an artifact, too.
It really is. It all comes right back to that core foundational mission she discovered in the dorm room, studying humanity through a visual lens.
So let's zoom out for a second. We have gone from eating a bagel in South Carolina to mourning the last white rhino in Sudan to weathering a rainstorm in Warmanalo and back to the subtle beaches of North Carolina.
What is the ultimate takeaway for you and me and for the listener?
I think the biggest takeaway here is about the quality of our attention. We live in a digital world that is completely obsessed with speed.
Scroll fast, double tap, consume, move on.
Exactly. Anna's work actively challenges us to do the opposite, to slow down, to truly look at the person standing in front of us or the animal or the landscape and deeply realize that they are finite.
It is about treating the present moment like a precious artifact before it's even gone.
Right. Whether she is photographing a nervous bride or an endangered rhino, her camera is essentially saying, I see you, and I am making absolutely sure that the future sees you too.
It really does change how you look at the thousands of photos sitting on your phone right now. Are they just disposable content? Or are they actual proof of life?
It is a question very much worth asking yourself next time you open your camera app.
Absolutely. If you want to see Anna's work, and you really, really should, because describing drawings of light on an audio podcast simply does not do her justice, we have linked her official website right down in the description box below.
Definitely go check it out. And hey, maybe try out that horse breath technique the very next time you are feeling stressed out sitting in heavy traffic.
Just make sure your windows are rolled all the way up so the people in the next car don't think you've completely lost your mind.
Or, roll them down. Let them hear it. Embrace the chaos.
Fair enough. Embrace the chaos. Well, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today. We've talked so much about physical artifacts, but what happens to all of this in the digital age?
Oh, that is a good question.
If an artifact is a drawing of light that proves we existed, what happens when our drawings are all trapped in a cloud server that eventually gets shut down? Are we going to be the first generation in history that might just disappear without leaving a physical trace?
That is a wildly provocative thought to end on.
Something to keep you awake tonight. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. Please hit that subscribe button to the Hawaii Wedding Studio podcast for more great info, deep dives, and everything you need to know about weddings out here in Hawaii.
We will see you all next time.
What a beautiful perspective on capturing your big day. From turning unpredictable rainstorms into stunning memories, to using simple breathing techniques to help couples find authentic stillness in front of the lens, Anna Morales truly shows us how to document love with a capital L. Whether you're planning a quiet elopement or a grand celebration, remember to slow down, take a deep breath, and let your true connection shine. Until next time, stay salty, stay hitched, and we'll see you on the sands of Oahu.